All right, and hello everyone, and welcome to Resilience in Business, a discussion about supporting entrepreneurs amid COVID-19. Thank you all for taking time to join us today. I'm Isabel Robles, and I will be moderating today's conversation. I'm also a reporter for Missouri Business Alert, where I cover entrepreneurship. For those of you who are new to Missouri Business Alert, we are a digital publication that provides top business news from across Missouri. We also host events like this one as a resource for the state's business community. Joining me today is Missouri Business Alert's editor, Michael Stacy.
Hey everyone, thanks for being with us today. And before we get going, I want to take a moment to just briefly mention a couple of things our team at Missouri Business Alert is working on. First, our daily email newsletter, The Morning Minutes. It delivers the day's top business news from across the state. And you can subscribe for free at missouribusinessalert.com/subscribe. Also, we have a weekly podcast called Speaking Startup. It focuses on entrepreneurship in Missouri, and it covers the news and issues important to the early stage businesses in the state. You can find Speaking Startup wherever you get your podcasts. But beyond the shameless plugs, I am here today to help facilitate audience participation. We want to hear from you all, so please ask questions and engage in this conversation. A few ways you can do that. First of all, if you're joining us via Zoom, you can use the Q&A option at the bottom of your screen. If you're tuned in through our Facebook feed, you can ask questions in the comments section, or you can just tweet at us. Our handle is at MoBusinessAlert. That is at MoBusinessAlert. That is all the housekeeping. So Isabel, back to you.
Great. So as I mentioned at Missouri Business Alert, we get to tell stories about lots of Missouri entrepreneurs, that is people that are starting and growing businesses. And during the COVID-19 pandemic, everyone has experienced disruptions. And of course, entrepreneurs are no exception to this. So today we want to discuss common issues that entrepreneurs are facing during the pandemic, also resources and support available to them, and what communities can help these vulnerable businesses. We're fortunate to have experts from across the state joining us to share their insights. All of our panelists work with organizations dedicated to helping people start and grow their businesses all across the state of Missouri. I'll briefly introduce each of our panelists and then let them tell us a little bit more about their organizations. So first we have Alexis Bartley with MoSourceLink.
Hi, Alexis Bartley, Missouri SourceLink. I'm the network builder for this organization. We're dedicated to improving the environment for entrepreneurs all across Missouri. Mainly, we do that by identifying the resources that are available to help start and grow businesses, connecting those resources together, and then also, of course, connecting entrepreneurs to the right resources at the right time for them to make entrepreneurship just a little bit easier and to grow those businesses faster and stronger.
Great. Next, I'd like to introduce Dr. Cheryl Watkins-Moore with BioSTL.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Again, my name is Dr. Cheryl Watkins-Moore. I represent BioSTL, which is a nonprofit organization here in the St. Louis market. They are one of the co-founders of the Building Our Startup community here in the St. Louis market, focused on building strong life science organizations here in our region. My focus specifically with BioSTL is I lead our inclusion initiative for the region, and that focuses on getting more women, people of color, and immigrant populations to consider starting a STEM-enabled type of ventures here in our region. So we invest heavily on programming that engages entrepreneurs to consider this path. Also training, we align ourselves with an organization here called CET Square One, which provides training for entrepreneurs, and we have our own internal training resource, which is our fundamentals program. And then lastly, we look at connecting resources in our region together to the entrepreneurs to have them be successful business owners.
Great. Next, we have Jessie Yankee with the Missouri Women's Business Center.
Hi, thank you. Again, I'm Jessie Yankee with the Missouri Women's Business Center. We're part of a nonprofit here in Columbia called Central Missouri Community Action. We serve mid-Missouri, eight counties in mid-Missouri, and we're starting to expand on that. And we're part of the nationwide network of women's business centers. We're all funded by the Small Business Administration, and we do one-on-one counseling, mentoring, and all of that fun stuff with entrepreneurs who want to start or grow their business.
Great. And finally, we have Paige Oxendine with the efactory.
Yeah, thank you, Isabel. Paige Oxendine, the program coordinator at the efactory. We're a program of Missouri State University and located in downtown Springfield, Missouri, so in the southwest part of the state. We offer a variety of resources and programming through our building, a little bit of everything. So that's incubator space for primarily tech-focused startups, a co-working space, an accelerator program for early stage companies, but also through our Small Business Development Center, offer a lot of one-on-one consulting to entrepreneurs and business owners, along with trainings, and then also corporate innovation and professional development training as well.
All right, awesome. Thank you all. Now we can get to the discussion. So first, I have some questions for all of our experts, and then later we'll get into questions for specific panelists. So our first question, which is for everyone, is what special programs or services are your organizations offering entrepreneurs in response to COVID-19? So how about we start again with Alexis?
Thanks. So some things that we're doing special. Well, first, I will say some of the services that we always offer to entrepreneurs, we're still offering those, but just tweaking them a little bit to address specifically issues related to COVID-19. So MoSourceLink has always operated as a central access point for entrepreneurs to locate and utilize resources across the state. So we've been working with our resource network, entrepreneur service organizations across the state to bring together various resources that entrepreneurs are needing as it relates to COVID-19. And we've built up a special webpage on our site, COVID-19 resources, and then specifically a deeper dive into funding and financing related to COVID-19. So really diving deep into the PPP and the EIDL loans, how to access those, what you need in order to prepare, pointing, again, entrepreneurs to the different resource partners across the state and the great work that they're doing to inform that. And additionally, something that we stood up in response to a need for financing and funding information is a funding, financing, financial request tool form. So entrepreneurs can go there on our website, give us a little bit of information about who they are, where they are, what kind of business they're operating, and the type of funding that they're searching for, so that our resource navigators can contact them one-on-one, provide them with some initial information about funding opportunities that they would qualify for, and then get them connected with the resource partner organizations that can help them take those next steps. We're still continuing to operate that statewide hotline. So any businesses that have questions and not sure exactly where to go or what to do first, we are answering that phone and getting them connected with the resources across the state. We're also working on some needs assessments. So we did an initial survey to identify from small businesses what their needs were in response to COVID-19, and we got that out really, I guess, around the first week or so that the stay-at-home orders for the state were issued. So we're using those results to inform the resource partners, but also state and local policymakers as to what the needs are of the small business community and where they are and are not being met.
We can go in the same order of introductions if you'd like.
So thanks a lot, Isabel. Well, BioSTL, I did just briefly touch on, like I said, we are a co-founder in the startup community, but BioSTL has a very broad platform in which we operate. Inclusion is just one program that we offer. We have programming, one of our programs is called BioGenerator, which invests in life science companies here in our region. And then we have other programming where we are bringing companies from Europe here into the St. Louis market to set up headquarters here in the St. Louis market. We're also involved in policy development as well. So the things that we're doing right now, I was going to just briefly touch on from BioSTL as an organization, and it's broken down into 3 different buckets. Response to the, what are we doing in response to COVID-19? What are we doing with regards to recovery? And then resiliency. So under response, we're looking at some of the activities we're involved is counseling to individual companies on securing federal stimulus resources, supporting commercialization of COVID-specific technologies. Since many of our companies are life science focused, they are involved in developing some of the technologies in response to this pandemic through seeking grants and financing. And also through our lobbying efforts in DC, we're looking at how do we increase resources that flow to entrepreneurs and other entrepreneur resource organizations here in our community. Under recovery, we're leading a statewide coalition through this organization called Next Missouri. Ben Johnson, who is our VP of programs, he is leading this effort, and this effort is to develop pro-entrepreneur recovery policies and programs. I know Alexis through MoSourceLink, you guys are involved in that effort, as well as Paige through your colleague, Rachel Anderson. And then the last bucket is resiliency. We're looking at building a St. Louis-based National Center for Pandemic Response and Economic and Health Resiliency. So this would leverage St. Louis' unique biosciences and healthcare strengths to integrate commercialization, workforce, scale up manufacturing facilities, and attraction efforts to build domestic capacity and resiliency. So as a whole, this is what BioSTL is focused on from our inclusion initiative, what I'm looking at, because we have a specific population that we cater to. Again, it's women, people of color, and immigrant populations. And one of the things that we're focused on are 2 things. Because there's a lot of folks, including BioSTL, working to help people get after these funds. We're going to be hosting a webinar May 7th, and we'd love for everybody on the call to join. And the focus of this webinar is really talking about, okay, now that the stimulus money is gone, what do you do next? Because for many of the folks that we work with, many of them were probably not banked, so they did not get access to the PPP funds. But there are other funds that are available, and we'll be discussing that on this webinar, as well as talking about business resiliency. Many folks have to, through entrepreneurs that we're bringing on this webinar, talk about how are they pivoting, what are they doing, how are they looking at creating new opportunities for their business in this new normal. And then lastly, we're sending out e-blast opportunities to highlight entrepreneurs and just what they're doing here in the region, how they're pivoting, how some are getting stuck because everybody's not pivoting. So what we're trying to do is just bring those stories to the region and be of assistance as best we can.
Great. Jessie?
Awesome. Well, I don't know how to follow that. You guys are killing it. Cheryl, that's amazing. And I'm definitely going to be following your progress. We have been, what I have enjoyed during this, and I hate to say the word enjoyed, but it's forced us to pivot to things that we needed to do. We're a very small staff. We have 2 full-time people serving 8 counties. And so we wanted to do these things online, and we wanted to do webinars. And because of this, we've just had to do it. And so we have transitioned all of our meetings, like our masterminds and things, to weekly Zooms, and all of them are more attended now than they ever were in the past. So that's been great. We're also in the progress of moving our Launch U course online, and our Launch U course is our 36-hour business planning course, where you go from idea to full business plan, and people are still wanting to start businesses right now. We're still getting those kind of calls, and it's really exciting. So we're pivoting all of those things, but what we're doing mostly right now is that one-on-one counseling, because as you guys know, every single business is completely different and unique in the way that they've run. And so counseling through each person of how their business has been running, and then so what resources they are eligible for, because like Cheryl said, many, if not most of our businesses didn't qualify for anything, either from the way they paid themselves, or it's just a one-man shop and the money ran out. And so connecting them with the specific resources that will work for their structure that they're in now. And then lastly, we're looking at the future of, what is our next training going to look like? And it's going to be, what do I need to do to prep my business so that this never happens to me again? And bringing in those financial experts, accountants, and all these people to help people structure their financial health of their business so that they're prepared in the future, because unfortunately, I'm sure this will not be the last time that this happens to us.
Paige?
Yeah, thank you. It's incredible to hear about all the great work that's happening across the state. Like so many others, we worked really hard to quickly move all of our offerings online. I really can't say enough good things about our team at the efactory and the Springfield chapter of the Small Business Development Center and their work to really quickly just think about that ease of access and those entry points, because we were looking to continue to serve not only all of our existing clients, but have really been flooded, like I imagine the rest of everyone on this call is, with what has turned out to be, a couple hundred new clients and entrepreneurs and business owners in our community who are suddenly looking to these resource organizations and saying, I need assistance, I'm looking for service, I'm looking for resources. And so we have just really strived to make it as easy as possible for them to access all of that. They can book one-on-one meetings online. So like we've said, everyone's individual case is very different. And so those one-on-one meetings have been a great entry point for people to get some of their initial questions answered, to speak directly with a business consultant. Of course, that's offered at no cost and is completely confidential. We've also, like many others, been hosting, a really high volume of webinars, knowing that some things can be answered to that broader group and that audience, and don't have to take place in a one-on-one format. And so the team has been hosting anywhere from 4 to 5 webinars per week. And so that's, a webinar every day. And the numbers have been really high, sometimes, 100 or 150 business owners on these individual webinars, asking questions and getting access to the information that they need. And the frequency of that has been great, knowing that all of the information surrounding all of the relief resources has really been changing almost every day as well. And so I know that's something that all of us have been dealing with, is trying to serve people, trying to provide information, and also knowing that that information and the specifics surrounding it has continued to change. And so keeping up with all of that and really making sure that you're effectively communicating that out to the entrepreneurs, so that they have that latest information and the latest updates from statewide decisions and federal decisions that are being made. We've pivoted things like our office hours online, and so clients can sign up online to meet virtually now with attorneys and other domain experts, and so they can still get those questions answered that our consultants are often looking to refer to our partners to. And then we launched a couple of new programs and of course stood up some other online resources. We knew that people were at home and not getting out and meeting anyone, networking if you will, or just not seeing anyone outside their circle. Maybe they were having Zoom meetings, with their team or their staff, but you're just not seeing the type of folks that you would typically see as you're out and about at events. And so we launched what we called an Ask Me Anything series. And so if you're familiar with an AMA, Reddit style chance to pick someone's brain, we rounded up some leaders with different backgrounds and experiences. And again, people could jump online, meet someone new, take 20 or 30 minutes out of their day, get some questions answered, and just kind of a chance to refresh and connect with someone that, isn't in your immediate circle day to day. And so we've done lots of things like that. We're also looking to continue to support our healthcare systems. And so at the Jordan Valley Innovation Center, which is kind of our sister facility, if you will, they've been working really closely with Cox Health to create PPE, so many acronyms, personal protective equipment for the healthcare workers in our region. And so really just trying to continue to share that story of entrepreneurship and innovation. Just like several have mentioned, our work with Next Missouri, wanting to make sure that state leaders and decision makers know the role that entrepreneurship will play in Missouri's economy moving forward, and the need to continue to support those efforts and to support resource organizations as well.
Great. Wonderful. So of course, as we all, or as you all shared, you guys have the opportunity to talk and meet with so many businesses. So maybe we can start with Paige and share 1 or 2 examples or the most common concerns that you are hearing entrepreneurs or kind of early stage businesses share.
Yeah, I'm sure it will come as a surprise to no one that funding continues to be the number one concern that we are hearing from entrepreneurs and business owners. And I think that that is true for those who have received relief funds. You know, maybe they did receive an EIDL loan or they did receive the PPP money. And then, of course, it's especially true for those who, for a variety of different reasons, did not qualify for or did not receive any EIDL or PPP money. And so the ability for these small businesses to continue to sustain themselves and their employees and their business models is going to be contingent upon them being able to access some type of relief funding. And so, of course, we're paying a lot of attention to what's happening with this additional stimulus money that might be rolling out. Of course, I imagine that it will go just as quickly as that first round did, if not even faster, knowing that there are a lot of applications already in the pipeline that were not previously met. And so funding is going to be a top concern. Not every community has seen other relief funds or grant opportunities materialize. And so I know in Kansas City and St. Louis and other parts of the state, there are, economic development organizations or foundations and other groups that have come together to create some grant funding opportunities. We have not yet seen something like that geared specifically to small businesses or entrepreneurs in the southwest part of the state. And so it's fantastic to see where that has popped up in certain geographical areas, but also knowing that that is not evenly distributed and accessible to entrepreneurs throughout the state either. And so funding is going to continue to be a number one concern from what we're hearing.
Of course. And then do you mind explaining PPP a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. The payroll protection plan. And so that was part of the stimulus package that was rolled out. The money did run out very quickly. And so the intent there is that business owners would receive relief funds so that they could continue to keep their employees on payroll, even if their business is closed and they are not, physically in the space working day to day.
Awesome. Thank you. Jessie, should we go with you?
Sure. Yeah. Like Paige said, and most of our calls are about what financial opportunities there are. And there's still a ton of confusion between business owners about what are the two different products from the PPP to the SBA EIDL loan, which is the economic injury disaster loan. And then the big question we have right now that we're still trying to figure out the answer to is, how do I use this money correctly that it's forgiven? When do I have to use it by? How my employees were laid off. When do I bring them back on? So we, along with our bank partners, are all trying to figure that out right now. So that's the big question that's out there. And I hope that in the next few days to a week, we'll be able to put out some content about that. And then piggybacking Paige again, Columbia was lucky in that in Columbia, we had a grant pop up, but it was a small grant. It closed within 2 hours because it was funded. Our footprint, the vast majority of our space is rural. And we have not seen anything pop up just yet for them. I know USDA is working on some things, but we really need access to some grants for our rural communities. And so, again, that's mostly our questions. And then planning for the future. Again, what do I do? What's it going to look like when the bans lift? How do I prep my business to accept customers in this new world? And then a lot of questions about how do I pivot my business to online, whether it's web design, online marketing, and things like that. Again, we're talking about rural America. These are things they're not ready for yet, so we got to take them quickly into the future.
Mm-hmm. Great. Cheryl, would you like to go next?
Excuse me. Yeah, I think from what Paige and Jessie just said, I mean, everybody, if you're an entrepreneur, you are concerned about funds and how to keep your business alive. For the population, like I said, that we work with, we are looking at, and through this webinar I quickly mentioned before, this is a collaboration of organizations coming together to host this. So I'm working with the St. Louis Regional Chamber to put it on, but the SBA is going to be involved in this discussion. Kevin Wilson will be involved. We have Erica Henderson from the partnership. We have Christy Maxwell, who is a business consultant as well as business owner, and Gabrielle Ramirez from the chamber, from the Hispanic Chamber, involved as well. And the stories are the same. I mean, people are trying to figure out, what is this PPP money? Many of the people that we serve did not get access to that money. And unfortunately, the funding that's coming after this, from what we understand, is that it's really to clear the clog in the pipe already of other applications that are already in the system. It's really not going to be for those people. If you don't have an application in, from what we understand, getting access to those funds might be almost near impossible. And if you are not banked, you're not going to be able to participate. I was happy to see that in the second stimulus funding that came out, they did set aside some funding to go directly into neighborhoods, through CDFIs, things like that, so folks can get access at that neighborhood level. But again, I've seen some articles that just came out today about how, is that funding mechanism really going to be there for those individuals? And for the length of time you're talking about with the PPP money, it's for a defined period of time, I think maybe 6 weeks or so. And if our pandemic is expected to continue and we still have lockdowns, how are these businesses going to survive? So the second part of our webinar is not just talking about PPP money. Erica's going to highlight other sources of opportunity for funding as well, local EDA, HUD type of funding that might exist. But the second half of that is going to talk about these businesses and how you need to look at getting your business stable. And because many of our folks, they're not looking at developing financial projections. They're not looking at putting together financial statements, things like that. What we're trying to say is you need to get yourself ready so that you are able to access new opportunities as they come up. You also need to be thinking about how to pivot your business. There are some folks, there's a guy that makes clothing, and he pivoted early on to start looking at doing face masks, so it's like thinking through the new demand that's gonna happen. I put an article up on my LinkedIn page from Harvard Business Review yesterday. It's gonna be a reimagining, looking at what are the products and services that you think people are going to need post in this new normal, and being able to pivot your business towards that. There's some businesses that won't pivot, that will go out of business. But you need to be thinking about how can I be competitive?
Right. And Alexis, especially with the report that MoSourceLink conducted or created with concerns, what have you guys noticed?
Sure. In the surveys that we sent out, and as well as the requests that we're receiving, through the hotline and through email. So we're hearing from these entrepreneurs, plus then we're meeting at least once a week with the statewide resource network, those that are able to join. And so kind of getting that anecdotal information as well. And everything that the other panelists have said, primary concerns around funding opportunities. Initially, it was confusion and needing clarification on the federal stimulus. But then as we started getting into those programs and understanding what businesses might be left out of that aid, then it was what other funding opportunities are available to me. And so there's a lot to talk about around that as well, in terms of where there are some glaring gaps that have always been around in Missouri, but really highlighted now. But additionally, so in addition to the funds, and then entrepreneurs seeking grant opportunities, because taking on additional debt, if portions of those loans are not forgiven, is not an option for many businesses. So again, where could they find opportunities outside the loans? And then general marketing support. So a lot of questions around, I need to find a way to reach my customers and deliver my products and or services in a way that is allowed with social distancing. And so those are the primary needs that are coming in, and honestly remain the primary needs. minute functions of that have changed a little bit in terms of now I need to look ahead and I want to better prepare, my financial health of my business to qualify in the future for loans, things like that. So seeing the same needs, but what we're seeing now is a slight shift in entrepreneurs as well as the entrepreneur support organizations, and focusing on what's next and how can we prepare for recovery, and proceeding on to a new normal.
Right. Well, that was really the perfect segue into our next question, which was, through the pandemic, what gaps have you noticed in support that it's available for businesses during this time, whether that is those in rural communities, as was mentioned by Jessie and Alexis at another point, or kind of underrepresented or underserved populations? Maybe Cheryl or Alexis would like to start with that one.
Alexis.
So I'll segue into what we've talked about as being one of the primary needs and requests from our entrepreneurs has been related to funding, and funding for small businesses has been an area that's needed some attention in Missouri for a while, but again, as I said, really being highlighted in this crisis. So aside from the federal aid, and Paige mentioned this, there have been communities that have been able to pop up grant funds, or maybe some communities already had access to alternative loans, whether that's through a micro lending organization like a Justine Peterson or an alt cap, something like that, or maybe it's a community run grant program for small businesses. But that certainly does not exist in all communities and does not exist in enough communities. So there's a desperate need to increase both the amount of available capital for small businesses and increase the access to that capital that entrepreneurs have. So a need to locate additional capital, really show that there is a need for communities to invest in startups and these small businesses, but also making the funds that are available more visible to entrepreneurs and helping them more readily access what is there for them. So to serve the greater entrepreneur population, I think that's still one of the biggest gaps that we've seen, and where entrepreneurs are being underserved in Missouri.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think what's telling is there was a study that, Alexis, you guys came out with this number, that 80% of net new jobs in Missouri are from startups, and that's an amazing number. But it's a frightening number if our startups start to go away. And when you look at, the funding opportunities, this is all about what any startup, what any entrepreneur needs is capital and customers. Okay. And I think what's being impacted are both, because we're in like this circuitous type of issue right now, is that with people not working, with people being laid off, you are losing customers in some sort of way. So going back to pivoting and understanding where the opportunity is, so that you can understand where your customer base might live, that could and might be able to support what you're doing. That's the whole pivoting factor that these entrepreneurs need to consider. The other piece is going back to the capital piece. There are, just like with the PPP program, people look at the numbers, look at the dollars available, but not looking at issues behind it. And you have to be compliant. You have to understand compliancy and understand if that loan, just like we talked about, is that a loan? Is it forgivable? How are you taking this money? So going back to business fundamentals, that's where we're looking at. You need to strengthen as an entrepreneur, your business fundamentals, if you're going after funding opportunities, to understand how does that impact you as a company? How will it move your company forward? And being very strategic about funds and how you're looking at leveraging those funds for your business. So that's where at least for me, for many of the folks that I work with, some people have pivoted and don't even realize they pivoted, you know? So it's really thinking through a business model and having a business plan that you can leverage so that as this hopefully does not go on for years, but as it does move forward, you're able to get into a system where you're able to leverage bank capabilities, credit opportunities, lines of credit, things like that, where you're not able to do that right now. So this is a time to really to start to think about and rethink your business model and your business plan, I think.
Yeah, I agree with Cheryl. The gaps that we're seeing that are being highlighted have always been there. They're just amplified right now. And I mean, I really hope a study is done, a third-party study on who received PPP loans, because I would love to see the breakdown of women and minorities that got those loans. And you guys see me getting all passionate again now.
Yeah.
But what we really need, right, and for capital for our businesses that either relaunch or are going to start up, access to affordable microloans is key. Our businesses, the average loan amount that we see at the Women's Business Center is between $30,000 and $40,000. It's not a huge amount of money, but most of our clients do have credit challenges. It's just the fact of the matter. And so we only have a few options to take them to get microloans that then have very high interest rates. And so they're starting their business out on a wrong foot already. So I hope that this is amplifying with our bank partners and new partners about the need for capital that's affordable and flexible for our startups. And I think that's probably the biggest gap that we have right now in mid-Missouri.
So kind of honing in on resilience more specifically, I'm wondering what are some common traits or skills you have seen amongst entrepreneurs that are handling this the best that they can? Or I guess in other words, how can entrepreneurs kind of equip themselves to weather a situation like this going forward? Feel free to start, whoever.
Sure.
Just wants
happy to share.
Go ahead, Paige.
You know, I think a lot of the skills that will help people weather this situation are actually a lot of the same traits that really make an entrepreneur, you know, even outside of a circumstance like this. And so entrepreneurs by nature, you know, we often say at the efactory, they are tenacious. They are people who have a desire to approach problems from a new angle. They're the people who are always thinking that there is a better way to do something, and that doing something the way it's always been done, just because that's the way it's always been done, you know, they're just people who are not really in line with that sort of philosophy. And so that belief that there's a better way, that there's a new way, and that persistence and again resiliency, which I know is a word that we've been using a lot here today, is what I think makes an entrepreneur and is what will also equip them to come out of this situation. And so that really, for me, and a lot of the conversations we've had internally as a team, drives home for us the notion that entrepreneurs and innovators and risk takers will be a huge part of what lead our state and also our country and ultimately our world out of this crisis. You know, if you look to the past, it is innovators, it's people who are willing to take a step out there and do something differently and to find a better way and a new way that help us solve these massive problems. And so I really think it's a lot of those traits that our entrepreneurs already have, because that's why they're entrepreneurs, because, you know, that's their personality, and that resiliency and that just, you know, persistence and tenacity is what's going to equip them. I think what we have to be able to do, you know, as resource providers and entities across the state is figuring out how we can continue to best support them, you know, kind of to equip them with the resources they need. And then kind of ultimately get out of the way and let them do it. But equipping them with the resources, like we've said a lot this morning, is difficult because the haves and the have-nots have really been highlighted. Again, those disparities are not new. They existed prior to the coronavirus pandemic, but we are seeing more than ever before the difference. And again, those haves and have-nots in terms of distribution of assets and opportunity. And so we really need to, I think, nail that part and get that right, and then allow the entrepreneurs to take it from there.
Yeah, I agree. I was just going to say, you know, people of color, women, and immigrant populations have always been entrepreneurial in some sense because they have not been able to get access to traditional resources like majority entrepreneurs have. So it goes, and I'm an entrepreneur. I've co-founded 3 companies myself. So I'm not talking about this as just a resource supporter. I've been on that side too. And entrepreneurs, we are crazy. We are tenacious. We are ones that, you know, if it comes down to, you know, you tell me to go left, I'm going right, because that's the path that I want to go on. But one of the things I would suggest to entrepreneurs right now, this is a time, like I said, to not only revisit your business, but also reach out to other individuals. Sometimes we get so internally focused on looking at a problem that getting folks from outside of your sphere and maybe outside of your industry, as I tell people all the time, the same problems exist in different industries, just looking at how do they solve them. So this is an opportunity for you as an entrepreneur to look at who's in my network that I can connect with. And don't be afraid to connect with people you don't know. I will reach out in a minute. Like I tell people, if I don't know you and I need to know you, I'm going to call you, or I'm going to figure out a way to connect with you, because you have some information that might be very valuable for me as I'm moving my business forward. And not only that, but you might have an opportunity to partner then with other businesses if it makes sense to do that. This is another opportunity to not only pivot your business, but maybe partner with some other businesses or another organization that maybe has capabilities that might be assistive of what you're doing. So this is a scary time. It's a scary time for everyone. But once you scream and get mad and everything else, get over that, because you're going to do that. But it's really an opportunity to start looking at, what are the resources I have here? What are the other businesses that are here that might be of value for me to connect with? And who are those individuals that I need to reach out to? So don't be afraid to do that.
I completely agree with Cheryl. That's what I was going to hit on, is the businesses that we're seeing that are successful right now, and they're successful in their pivots, is that they're positive. I mean, they have positivity, and the ones that are saying woe is me, and they're blaming the government, and they're doing all these things, that's not the answer. So if you're listening on this call and that's you, reach out to a resource partner. Every single one of us on this call acts as business therapists half the time, and we pull you out of that slump and take you to the next level. And so that is the main thing. I mean, it's such a basic thought, but just a positive outlook, and where can I take my business now, and what can I be working on to go to the next level, instead of playing the blame game. That's all you need, and we can take you to the next, the next part of this.
Great.
Yeah. I think it's that flexibility, as everyone's mentioned, right? The willingness and the ability to pivot, but also having that stability of focus and not getting too caught up or for too long in the panic that this situation has caused, or the woe is me, I don't qualify for these federal funds or whatever it is, but focusing in on what the next step needs to be, and how do I find resources that can support me in that? What is the next step that I need to take? And really focusing in on making your business successful moving forward. And as tough as it is, sometimes not letting the outside noise get to you, or all the fires that are going to pop up. anytime when you're running a business, but especially when there's a global pandemic, is to keep focused on running that business successful, and again, just being flexible and able to change it up if you need to.
Great. And then sort of flipping the coin to the other side, what can communities do to kind of enhance that resilience, or just really be there to support their local businesses right now?
I'll say again, right, communities right now to recognize the importance that small businesses have on their community, and the jobs they create, the revenue they bring in, and looking and asking yourself, how can we support these businesses? What do they need now? And really digging down to realize that not all businesses are the same. Not all business owners are the same. Not every solution is going to fit every business. So who are your businesses? What are their unique needs? And really asking, what can we be doing to help? A lot of times I think it's just as simple as that, is actually making the investment of your time and supporting these businesses. But I'll go back to also what we've talked about, is a desperate need for financial assistance, and not just saying, provide a handout to small businesses in your community. Everyone's struggling at this point, but what can we do moving forward to locate funds? Maybe it's from the federal level to start a loan pool, and just really get behind your small businesses, because these are the businesses that are making your communities great, and these are the businesses that are going to stay in your communities. Also, one other thing too, right? As we see this pandemic affect not only small businesses, but large ones too. A number of people have been laid off or furloughed. And when we see a rise in unemployment, we also see a rise in the rate of startup businesses. So if you're not focusing as a community on how to best support new businesses, now's the time, because that demand is going to increase, and you're going to have a lot of folks in your town wanting to start a business now.
Yeah, I was going to echo that in terms of collaboration. The communities, and Columbia has been really great at this so far during this pandemic, is the public-private nonprofit sector collaboration has got to continue to grow. And we have broken down a lot of silos in the last few weeks of becoming one. Especially as nonprofits, we're all running our little show and trying to, do our thing and find funding, and it's like all of a sudden all that's gone and we're all working together. And what's going to come out of that is huge, and the city leadership needs that. They need us to advise them on what our people need from them. So increasing the amount of those collaborations. I know in Columbia they created a long-term planning group that has representatives from the city, from the chamber, from all these different entities that we've never had before, and it's incredible. And so no matter the size of the community, even a small rural town in Missouri, the leaders of that town need to come together to network and put together what is best for their community and do those type of surveys that we're all doing. And so collaboration between all of the sectors is going to be the biggest part, I think, of a community support system for startups and resilience.
Great. All right. So now we will move on to our questions from the audience. Remember, for anyone who has them pop up in the next couple of minutes, that you can submit questions on Facebook comments using the Zoom Q&A, or by tweeting to @MoBusinessAlert on Twitter. So we will move over to Michael for this portion.
Thank you. So one question that I've seen popping up is curiosity about the discounts and accommodations and sort of special arrangements that entrepreneurs have been able to get from landlords or vendors or that sort of thing. Curious who has worked with entrepreneurs who have been able to broker those sorts of arrangements, and if there's any guidance or any observations that you've seen about kind of a successful way to go about doing that.
Sure, I can speak to that briefly. One thing that we have really been encouraging all of our entrepreneurs to consider, when they find themselves in these hard positions, and it takes time, which is not an indefinite resource, but it comes down to a lot of that one-on-one communication and reaching out where you have hopefully relationships built. And so we have advised everyone, as strongly as we can, if you have any type of existing business loan or financing mechanism, like get in touch with your provider, get in touch with your credit card company, get in touch with your landlord. It really does come down to reaching out, that one-on-one conversation, explaining to them where you are. Now, I can't make any promises about what anyone may offer anyone, but I think that you don't get what you don't ask for. That's something that we've shared with everyone. And I know that it can be frustrating, especially when you're working through, much larger multinational corporations to sit on the phone and to try to get through to someone. But it is going to take, again, some of that tenacity, and then seeing all of the options that are available to you. And so I think it's very much a case-by-case basis. I think it underscores, the importance moving forward, for everyone to really have established relationships with a variety of business advisors and different providers. Like, do you have a good relationship with your attorney? Can you reach out and ask them a question? Do you have a good relationship established with a local banker, for when the time comes? And so I have read a lot from people who have said, I'm strongly considering, changing who I have some of these accounts and relationships with, because I'm looking for someone who, can provide me more of that one-on-one connection should I find myself in this situation again. And so I hate that for the folks who find themselves in that position right now, because it's a tough time to try to make that switch, but really reaching out with everyone who you can and seeing what flexibility they might be able to offer you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think to Paige's point, right, reach out, know that, if it's your cell phone company or your utilities provider, that this is a global pandemic. We are all in this together. We are all experiencing a lot of those same pain points. So have the conversation, see what you can do, but then also contact your local United Way chapter. That group is working with a number of other nonprofits to provide some financial assistance if you are having trouble making your utility bill or your cell phone bill or your car payment. There are often resources in your community for that, and the United Way is a gateway to access that.
Great. And actually, that's a good jumping off point for another question that has bubbled up, which is you all have had a chance to talk about your own offerings and your own organizations. Who are other folks in your communities who are providing valuable resources to entrepreneurs in these times? And this can be sort of a lightning round, just one or two that are top of mind who you see doing good work in these times.
Definitely the small business development centers across the state are huge. They are a kind of a sister agency of the women's business centers in that we are all SBA funded chapters. So SBA, our SBDC, small business development centers, and you guys can Google SBA resource partners and find the nearest one. They're all over the state. I would say they're definitely top of mind for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say not only, are here in the St. Louis market, because we collaborate, my organization, specifically our inclusion initiative, we collaborate with, or try to, with as many organizations pre-COVID and now post, during this whole thing. So the chambers, I think, are excellent opportunities to reach out to, like the Hispanic Chamber, the St. Louis Regional Chamber of Commerce. You have the Asian Chamber. I don't know what all of these organizations are doing, but they are in support of businesses here. Alexis, you do wonderful work. I reached out to you guys, because what we're trying to do is understand what are the needs entrepreneurs have. And then instead of me recreating that survey, I'm leveraging the information that Alexis will be coming back with to help us with developing additional programming. So there's like if you're a veteran, Darcella and her organization, the Veterans Business Center in St. Louis, and she's
the Veteran Business Resource Center, which is, yes, I believe, also an SBA funded partner as well.
Yes. So there are various organizations that are normally here to support entrepreneurs that are kicking it into high gear, because we understand the cost of losing just one business. That's an impact to our community, that's an impact to our tax base, those are jobs, all of that. So we're here to support.
I would echo all of that. MoSourceLink and the work that Alexis and her team does has been invaluable to us, and even just convening resource partners from across the state on a weekly call so that we can all continue to collaborate and share best practices and how we're serving entrepreneurs during this time. Our Small Business Development Center, just like Jessie said, the Springfield chapter is part of our efactory programs, and we've been so thankful and so blown away, frankly, by the work that they've done over the last couple of weeks, and then also our local chambers in the community.
Yep, all the same things, but so many resource providers out there have really stepped up to the plate. Definitely, as everyone before me has said, the SBDCs have been on the front lines for a lot of communities, as one of the initial resources that folks reach out to. But something I'm also really appreciating are some of these organizations and networks that primarily serve a certain industry or a niche, right? So you've got Missouri Enterprise. That's a statewide organization with local chapters located all over the state, and they really focus in on manufacturing, and manufacturing being a wide breadth of, whether it's food manufacturing, whatever that is. So there's some unique needs from those type of businesses, and those organizations have the focus to really bring up those needs and find ways to serve them. The Missouri Main Street Connection, focusing on how to help Main Street brick and mortar type businesses pivot and reach their customers, but they're also offering services to communities and finding resources to bring in additional federal funding to revitalize their downtown, or maybe make improvements to some of those storefronts during this time, ways that are going to end up benefiting the businesses as well. You've got organizations like India Extension, their workforce and labor area that they're focusing on, especially now as we're looking at reopening and bringing back workers. What are some of the more specific questions that employers are having about how to deal with workforce issues related to COVID, but also when we bring employees back, how do we prepare our businesses to be a healthy environment for those individuals to work in? So really seeing a lot of these organizations continue to do the work they've already been doing, but really be highlighted and are getting a lot of their work larger population, and I hope more entrepreneurs seeing some of these resources that they can tap into as well.
One of the things that I was thinking about, and this is just something that's been rolling around in my head, it's like we need to reimagine how capital is deployed. We have organizations from venture capitalists to private equity companies to banks to all these different organizations. Social impact investing is at a forefront right now. How do we reimagine all of these different capital sources to leverage to maybe be able to provide support for these entrepreneurs, but in a very, very different way? Because there's a lot of capital that might be available that can be deployed in a very different way than what it's doing right now. So that's one of the things that I think reimagining capital and how it's deployed in community is another thing. I think we can all spend some time collaborating on partnering with these organizations and thinking about that.
Great. All right, and then to squeeze in one last question toward the end of our panel, I kind of want to end on a high note and ask for all of you to share the most hopeful or encouraging thing you've seen, whether it's an entrepreneur who's pivoted within your business community, or a highlight from this kind of untraditional situation in your work environment in the last month or so.
I think it's those quick pivots, like we've said, that have really been amazing to see during this time. And so, I mentioned earlier the production of the personal protective equipment at the Jordan Valley Innovation Center. They really were able to move from prototype to production in less than 48 hours. And so that's been amazing to see. We've also seen entrepreneurs here in the community pivoting so that they can start offering testing through facilities that they have and labs that are typically used for other functions. And we've also seen a Springfield-based business, Step and Pull, which I know Missouri Business Alert actually got in touch with, really trying to help prevent the spread of germs. And so they've got a Missouri-made product that attaches to the bottom of doors. And, they have seen their sales during this pandemic actually, their sales are greater over, I think, the last 6 or 8 weeks than in the lifetime of their business. And so I think there's also something to be said for remaining ready, because you never know what's going to happen that is completely out of your control, where suddenly your product or your service is in greater demand than you ever could have anticipated, and they've lined up additional manufacturing and fulfillment. And so, there's a silver lining there for them.
Yeah, let's look at the toilet paper industry. That's all you have to look at.
Who would have thought?
So, I would say one of my clients that comes to mind, she lives in a very, very rural town. She's got a little tiny shop, Main Street shop, and she's quite shy. And she's one that immediately pivoted to these lives. She does these lives on Friday nights. It's like, kind of girls' night, boutique shopping. And like Paige said, I'm sure her sales have actually gone up quite a bit, and it forced her out of the comfort zone. And that is what I'm loving across a lot of my business owners is, Facebook Live is a thing. We've got to be able to do it. The Facebook algorithms love it. If you want your stuff to be seen, you've got to do video. And, it's embarrassing. Look at us all now doing Zooms like it's, we've doing it our whole lives. And so to take that step to be like, I don't care anymore. I need my business to survive, and doing these lives, I love it. And so I'm loving that, seeing my entrepreneurs pivot and do things outside of their comfort zone and then get the reward from that. So that's definitely the case. And again, going back to people that are listening on this call, it's like, if you don't know what to do, or that still feels outside of your comfort zone, anybody on this call today would work with you on that and connect you to people to help you, pivot your marketing that way. So that's definitely my happiest story so far.
Yeah, I think just seeing the unique ways that people are pivoting, right? So you talk about making the PPE, or, really embracing online, and the different platforms to reach your customers. But something too, where I'm starting to see businesses partner together to do, these fun collaborations, whether it's, business A sells wine and the restaurant or, whatever it is next door, they're doing these kind of fusion packages. And so both of their businesses are benefiting from that. And you're in some ways decreasing the effort or the output because you're collaborating. Seeing what local artists and makers are doing to come together. And again, we're all having to go online and maybe build our virtual storefronts and sell our products. But, you're seeing a lot of local makers come together and sell their products all on one site. So I think that's been really fun. And then, to talk even about the resource partner community, the entrepreneur service organizations, is having a lot of conversations that maybe we've all, talked a little bit about, but really seeing a focus on, are we serving these, minority populations or these underserved populations? Who's not able to get help right now? And the resource network is being really innovative, and how can we better serve businesses? So it's a trying time, but I've been impressed with everyone's ability, to pivot their businesses and really ask, what can we be doing next, and what does there need to be, and how can we fill that? And Missourians just really willing to be resilient and be flexible and step up and remain focused on just making Missouri a better place for businesses and making sure that as many of us can get through this unscathed. So we're, you know, a little worse for wear, but.
I was just going to say, I'm just happy to see when I see the news and just see how some businesses are just stepping up and supporting in different ways. I saw a young man, high school kid, who was using a 3D printer to print out face shields for many of our here in our region. So now there's some restaurateurs that are serving lunches to these, or food to our healthcare workers. So I'm just amazed. You know, people always talk about sometimes the worst in humanity. I think we're seeing some of the best when people are coming out, even at the detriment of themselves and their business. They're going out to support other folks or other organizations, and I'm just happy to see that.
Right. Great. All right. Well, thank you all. That is all the time that we have. Again, I'd like to take a moment to thank all of our panelists, Alexis Bartley, Paige Oxendine, Dr. Cheryl Watkins-Moore, and Jessie Yankee. It was a pleasure to have you all join us. And of course, thanks to everyone at home for joining us. A recording of today's discussion will be available for you to revisit and share with others. And if you're interested in keeping up with everything else Missouri Business Alert is doing, check us out at MissouriBusinessAlert.com. So stay safe, stay resilient, and thank you all again for joining us today. Have a great one.
Thank you.
Thank you.